We just sang Shirley Josephson's favorite hymn. When what's now our social hall was added on to Bucksmont's building as a new sanctuary, some folks thought the front hall wall looked too plain. Shirley suggested a banner with words from that hymn. Peace shall walk softly through these rooms. That orange felt strip, adorned with cut-out leaves, arched above the bay window every September for many years. I'd only been coming a short time, and I was looking in the bulletin each week for some activity that might interest me. During one coffee hour, a short woman with a sweet smile and bright eyes paused to ask if I'd like to come to the women's spirituality group meeting on Tuesday evening. Oh boy, would I. 6 to 8 women would sit around Kathy Severance's dining room table, talking about women's roles in religion, how to shift to a more feminine ideal and outlook, and how it affected our spirituality. Kathy was the minister's wife, but Shirley was our convener, leader, mother hen, nudge, and conscience. I found out Shirley was involved in many aspects of fellowship life, from social responsibility activism, Sunday programs as a planner and a speaker, teaching in children's religious education, and even singing in the choir at times. The UUA held its General Assembly in Philadelphia in 1984. Shirley told me how she'd been sitting on some steps listening to the speakers that inspired her with wonderful ideas about women and religion. It may have been after the General Assembly she became active in the Joseph Priestley District Women and Religion Committee and served on its board. Shirley brought Bucksmont's Women's Spirituality Group some of our favorite activities from there. The Spirituality Group created an annual women's service for a number of years. For one such service, she introduced Bucksmont's first ever water ritual, which we used in place of the chalice lighting. It symbolized our journeys as women and represented the way we both contribute to and draw from each other's strength. The District Women and Religion Committee held a weekend retreat every October at the UU campground in Murray Grove. As one of the planners, Shirley encouraged Bucksmonters to attend this time of spiritual renewal and learning. Some of us are grateful that we did. Active on the board of Murray Grove, too, she was tickled and proud when a fellow JPD leader presented her with a photo of the goddess of Murray Grove. He had superimposed Shirley's picture on a scene of the woods at the campground. As women's roles in religion was of growing interest to many, the UUA developed a course exploring feminine deities. Shirley introduced Bucksmont women to these goddesses when she taught the course called Cakes for the Queen of Heaven. In one of our final activities, each woman created an expression of herself on a felt oval. The various colored ovals were attached in an attractive pattern to a green banner. The banner has been used in the fellowship in various ways and times throughout the years since. Shirley's gift to me and many other women here was to open our hearts and minds to an alternative spirituality which celebrated the feminine. She truly was our goddess.
So Celia Sharp, today we're talking about Jack and Rosemary Schieber, and we wanted to get a little feeling for how they interacted with first the Social Justice Committee and then later on the Peace and Justice Committee. So when did you first meet Jack and Rosemarie?
I first met Jack and Rosemary in 1994 when I moved from Washington, D.C. to Boxman.
And when you were working with them, what seemed to be one of their major focuses on the Social Justice Committee when you first started?
Well, I think just thinking about this memorial service brought those ideas back in my head. And I want to share those memories with everybody because Jack and Rosemary Shiver were founders of the Boxman. And their grandparents immigrated from Germany. So they had that feeling of being an immigrant. And I think that's what made them their entire lives be concerned about social justice. Back in the 80s, they sponsored families to come to the United States through Boxman. And one of the great memories was that Jack, even when he was 90 years old, he was demonstrating in front of our fellowship for peace and justice. Rosemary was working very hard on welcoming the strangers, and she went to dinner almost few weeks before she died to support this cause. So they were really champions for peace and justice. They were one of the best Unitarians that I ever met.
Okay. We're talking a little bit about immigration. I notice we have a Jack and Rosemary Shiver Memorial Fund for students. Talk a little bit about that fund and what it's used for.
Because they belong to the peace and justice almost all the time since they created the committee. When they die, the peace and justice considered that the best way to honor them was to keep these memories of their involvement with immigrants. Back in the early 80s, when they sponsored people from Dutch Indonesia, from Lebanon, and then from Germany. And in the later day, they helped all the immigrants from Central America and Mexico and so many places where people need to get some sponsorship and help. They were concerned that part of the peace and justice was to welcome the stranger. And that motivates the committee to help create a scholarship for people who has no documentation, students who have no documentation, but still that wants to pursue a higher education. So the scholarship, the Jack and Rosemary scholarship was created to help students who wants to go to Bucks County Community College. And they had to be admitted to the school first, and the college sent us the names of those students, and then we decide which ones we can support. And since 2017, we have been a sponsor for students every year. We money raise for this scholarship fund.
Okay. So it sounds like Jack and Marie were really involved a lot with the immigration stuff at Buxmont. Can you give me just a feel for how you felt about Jack Rosemarie's interaction, not only with the committee, but with Buxmont in general?
Oh my God, for us, the old timers, for us, Jack and Rosemary were the pillars of Boxman. They support the fellowship since the beginning through the difficult years in the 80s. And then during the several transitions of ministers, they were there. They were in some way, very wealthy, and they support with monetary funds. They were very dedicated to all the programs that the church involved into. And especially, of course, in the peace and justice issues. So they were not just concentrating the immigration issue, they were concentrating peace and justice. Like when we were creating a telephone bank to support the minimum wage right here in Bucks County, they were there. When we were working for voting rights, they were there. When we were supporting the teachers that were in strikes, they were there. When Boxman started helping the children during the winter time with clothing, they were there. So for me, these are the champions for all of these different causes, wherever it was that they were ready to help.
Okay, so given that, I think it's a great thing that we are able to remember Jack and Rosemary today on the, right before Memorial Day. So Celia, thank you very much. And we will proceed and see what else we can find out about Jack and Rosemary. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you very much. It has been an honor for me to just think about them, because when they passed, it was such a loss for the church. And we still cry when we remember them.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. It was a significant life event when Jerry Johnson asked me to speak to give honor to Jack and Rosemary Schieber. They were fantastic, immense part of our fellowship for so many decades. They joined apparently pretty early on after the fellowship was established. And the thought occurred to me, a lot of time could be saved in saying what they did, rather than to mention everything. It can be rather simply summed up to say that Jack and Rosemary participated in just about everything the congregation did. But more specifically, they were very, very active. Well, anything having to do with civil rights and social justice, that was their main passion. So needless to say, they were very frequent attenders to our Peace and Justice Committee meetings. They also were involved in the early meetings of the Green Sanctuary Committee when we were starting to try to work towards Green Sanctuary status for Bucksmont UU. Very, very active in building and grounds. And both Jack and Rosemary were frequent participants, enthusiastic participants in work parties and in gardening events. They did a lot of work maintaining, establishing, and working on the gardens outside of the church. Jack in particular was notable among us as being one of us who was immune to poison ivy. So Jack did more than his fair share of pulling out that poisonous weed. He led canoeing trips. He led the JB walks for many years, which were opportunities for people to get together and walk nature trails for exercise and enjoyment of the outdoors. He was a real outdoorsman. They just loved nature. Jack had a large Buddhist component to his feelings and his personality. He began and led meditation groups at the church, and he began the Buddhist practice that we call First Light. And that is an event where all around the world, groups get together for Buddhist meditation before the time of their local sunrise. So for several years now, we have gathered about an hour before sunrise on the 1st of January of each year. And we sit in the sanctuary and we see either a cloudy coming on to daylight, or on clear days, we see the sunrise in the east coming up on the other side of the middle of Chamonix Creek. And it's a delightful experience that we've been very fortunate to share. Jack began it and led it. And I have every expectation we're going to be keeping that tradition going. It's a lovely experience, and we're thankful to Jack for that. What I think was very impressive about Jack and Rosemary in their being a frequent, continual presence among us on Sunday mornings and all many other events, is that they had a calm, dignified presence. There was no glitz or glitter and no show of ego, just a real bearing witness to what they believed in and what they, by their own example, were encouraging us all to do on behalf of of a good future for all of humankind. And I tell my friends and associates every now and then, my thoughts and consciousness kind of come to a screeching halt with the realization that they're not here. And it just seems so wrong. But the thoughts then quickly go to realizing that, hey, now it's our job. The onus is upon us to do the heavy lifting and to do the work that we need in this world. And that's really the best way we can honor Jack and Rosemary, is to try to carry on as much as they did. One of the last things that Jack Cheever was encouraging us all to get involved with is something called the People's Lobby. It's a good set of plans to do action on the federal level to really help our nation and our world, and especially in the line of combating global climate change. So if you go into peopleslobbyusa.org, you'll see the whole thing. And that's what we need to be doing. We need to get busy. And I thank you, Jerry, for the opportunity to talk about Jack and Rosemary, to pay them a really heartfelt and well-earned tribute. And now, the thing is, for the rest of us, let's get going.
Please join me in singing hymn number 1002, Comfort Me. Comfort me. Comfort me. Comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me.
this cause.